Okay, picking it back up at number 12. As you can see, it's a solving the system equation by elimination method. Remember we talked about that is making one of the terms go away. In order to make one of the terms go away, we have to, I taught someone today, she was like, how do you know how you change it? I mean, how you decide what number to change it to? Or which term, which variable you're going to try to get rid of. That was even a concern. She's like, I just don't get it. And I'm glad she had the conversation because it made me brainstorm a little bit as to how I could help her. What I encourage her to do is, like, if you just absolutely don't see between either of those variables which one you should work with, if it's not even glaring at you, the first thing I would do is ask to go into my math button. So I'm over here on my main screen. I'm going to go to math, and I'm going to look for an LCD. So I go to number, and I scroll down, or you could just click 8, because there's your LCM. So the LCD, I'm going to look for the R one to see if I want to move it, or change it, or change the other one. So when I'm making that decision, neither one of those is the LCM, which means I'm going to have to change both of them to the LCM. So right there, I'm like, I don't really want to do that. Let me see about the other one. So I can go back into the math button, but I could also just go grab this one and re-put that in there. It's -3, -6, but that's not what I'm worried about. I'm really worried about what their actual number that they both go into is, and so I'm just going to put a 3, 6. And we see that, hey, actually, that is one of them. So when you're looking at the two options for the R, this is the R, that means I'd have to change both terms. If I'm looking at the 3 and the 6, I only have to change one of them. So that lets us know that we're going to be changing to the 6. So between the 3 and the 6, we're going to choose to move to 6. So that means I'm working right here. I'm working on these right here. And I want one to be a +6 and one to be a -6. And again, S is a part of our answer. So it doesn't matter which is which, just one is they're both negative, so we have to switch one of them to make it positive. That means we're going to have to multiply. Remember how to change something to the opposite sign is to multiply by a negative. So again, I'm going to multiply. We're going to grab the top since it's not 6. And we want it to be 6. And since we're going to go ahead and be working with that one to change it, we're going to do the sign change there. And so we're going to leave this bottom one completely alone. So like I said, if I were wanting to make a decision on that too, that's also a challenge for some people, is if I want that to be a +6 sitting right there instead of a -3, I can type in 6 and divide by the variable, or sorry, the coefficient that's sitting in front of the variable to decide what I'm going to multiply all the rest of the terms by, as well as that one. So when I do that, I see that I'm going to multiply by a -2 across the top. So times -2 here, times -2 there, and times -2 on the back. So we're going to rewrite that with the -2 being multiplied. So -2 times 7 is -14, plus 6s equals -46, I believe. And then we go through and just rewrite that bottom expression down there, that equation on the bottom there. So we did this so that we didn't have to change 2. We practiced in class where we had to change both the equations, and in this example, we want to avoid having to change both because that's a lot of room for careless mistakes. So in this example, I'm going to just change the top so that I'm not having to worry about the second one. So as we do that, again, we bring them together. And remember that that's a -14 and a +3, so we get -11R. These two cancel out. And if I were thinking about it, I probably would have scooted that in, but let's go ahead and write that 0 just so we see it. And we get, ooh, my goodness. Is that 55? So it's a -55. Remember, two negatives stay negative. That's one of those moments. Me and 9s don't get along. Goodness, they don't get along. And so because y'all are so good about using your calculator, I would also put in your sign. All I needed to know was what those added together to, but definitely put in your signs so that you see that it's -55. So then we bring so all I did was rewrite that without the 0 sitting there. And we're solving for R. And we get that R equals 5. And remember, with the alphabetical order, with order pairs, We talked about that we didn't talk about it up here, but in class we talked about the fact that ordered pairs are in alphabetical order, typically X, Y. And so if you're dealing with R and S, think about the alphabet and that R comes first. So it's R is that first one. And then we're going to plug R back into one of these. I'm going to go with, it really doesn't matter. I'm going to go back up to this original one. That's 7. We talked about that in class. A lot of y'all were like, well, but I wanted to work down here because we already changed it. And that's fine. If you want to, you can grab one. They just all have a bunch of negatives. It's not going to matter which one you try. So I'm going with the one right up here. And I'm going to solve for S. Oops, that's not a negative. What am I doing? I was trying to force something in there. 35. So then we move, I don't need to mark that out. We move the 35 over to this. So as you look at it, this is number, variable, number. I want that number to go sit over on the other side. We get negative 3s equals 12, negative 12. It's one of those times I'd want to double check because first of all, this is a video, so I want to make sure I'm right. And so then, yeah, I'm scooting this up here so that I can have more room to solve. And so we get the S is 4, which makes sense because there's your answer. Right there. Okay, so that's number 12, and we've already done the other side, so we're on to number 13. More number 13. So number 13 was, I think, in our quiz today. One like it. Again, remember that negative that sits outside of parentheses, this is so important. That's why I put it on the board again today, because we need to be familiar with what negatives do. Either when we want to factor them out or put them in. And in this case, we're putting it in, we're factoring it, or sorry, multiplying it in. It's so important to pay attention to that. A lot of y'all made that mistake of not multiplying and getting that to be a positive. And just try to remember that it's not as complicated. Just make sure you're thinking clear, that it's opposite signs of what's on the inside. So 7y minus 5y plus 10. That's that. And I can double check myself that 5 was positive here. Y'all can't see any of that. Uh-oh, I'm sorry. There we go. Oh, still can't see it. I'm glad I checked that. So, okay, back up to 13. This is the one from the homework, or from the quiz in class on the board. Not exactly the numbers, but as I was talking about with the negative, we need really to be really comfortable and paying attention to what the negative does. So the negative can be multiplied through and change the signs of the inside, or it can factor out and change the signs of the inside. So the terms that are there was a 5, a positive 5y, and now it's negative, and a negative 10, and now it's positive. That's the main thing you need to do to double check yourself. Just make sure that those are opposite signs when you write them down. When we do that, then we come over here. I encourage y'all to label, because this happens often. I just saw it as I was grading your quizzes today, that you have a tendency to try to use opposite signs right here. We can't use opposite signs on the same side of the wall. When we're cleaning up the sides of the wall, we have to use the signs that are given to them. So that's a positive 7 and a negative 5. We're going to have 2y plus 10 equals 28. So we keep going. Again, now we can move over the wall. Now we can use opposite signs. A lot of y'all got this one right. I was really impressed. So again, I just subtracted 10 from 28 and got y equals 9. Number 14. Definitely pause it as you want to, like, kind of soak something in. I'll encourage y'all to do that. I'll just keep going. So, number 14, more solving from section 1, and it's a lot. It's one of our heftiest ones, and most of my students miss these two on the test. Again, more distribution with multiplication. And remember, that negative needs to be distributed. And that all that means, it's not a complicated process, it's just a tedious need to pay attention to your details process. So we get 35x plus, see, I almost wrote it again. I think we did one very similar to this. I mean, I think this was one of our quizzes. So we have 35 plus 56, 12 minus x minus 4. And here's where we go back through again. and practice that cleanup step. This is where lots of y'all on the quizzes used opposite signs here and had a 4 come over here. You just kind of had some messy stuff going on, so be careful with that. That is not going to happen. We're going to bring those two together for sure, but we're not going to use opposite signs yet. 12 minus 4 is 8 minus x. So all I did was combine the 12 and the negative 4. Then we start looking at moving over the wall, because as I've cleaned all this up, I can see that I've got one of each on both sides, so I just need to start moving some stuff. So I'm going to use, like we have learned in lecture, that I prefer to move my variables first, so I'm moving that x. A lot of y'all did this in class and for that quiz, and either got 34 right there or didn't do it at all, almost did like multiplication. So that was a mistake, kind of a careless mistake, not paying attention. So we've got, going back through, if I move my variables this way, I say that on repeat. I'm hoping it's going to finally click. If I move my variables left, I have to move the numbers right. Oops, not time to divide. So we subtract 56 from 8. Now we divide. And remember, this is that one that everybody kind of got bogged down on. And most of, if you got all this work done, well, you either didn't simplify at all or you didn't simplify all the way. Please, by all means, use your calculator. So I'm going to put negative 48 divided by 36. Go in and grab the math. So again, let me second quit that again. So typed all that in, and I'm not even asking to, I'm not pressing enter, I'm just pressing math, fraction, fraction. So it simplified that for me. Make sure that you're showing me your answers, either with a box or writing them in the answer solution. Let me know where you are with it. Okay, here we are going on to this next one. Number 15 is like on, we had this, we didn't really have it in a quiz, but we went back over it. F equals 1/2 GW, we're solving for G. And it's got a half multiplied times it, and it's got a W multiplied times it. So we've talked about this before, so I'm going to clean this, scoop this in a little bit. That when we're trying to undo a fraction that's in front of a variable that we want, we can use its reciprocal. And remember that that reciprocal in this case is a whole number, because 2 over 1 is a whole number, but that does make that go away here. So whatever we do to one side, we've got to do the other. And in this case, that f is already a whole number, and because the reciprocal is a whole number, I can just say 2f and get GW. And then again, we're still trying to get G by itself. Remember, this is that section where it's just wanting you to understand your rules and how to undo the process. So we divide the W off, and we get 2f divided by W. Again, section 2. I look like I'm getting close to, and I only got 3 questions done that time. Goodness gracious. Okay, but I want to keep them short so that you don't feel overwhelmed when you open one. I used to be really overwhelmed when I'd see like 45-minute videos, although these are going to add up to about an hour, but at least they're in small chunks. Okay, continuing on this page and on the next video.